with today's lesson. So we're going to be making a program that that will mimic how you talk with an AI, or how you chat with what we call chatbots, which are computers that would say things that would simulate a conversation, right, with a real person. So what we're going to do first, the first thing you do in a conversation. Yes, does anyone have any questions before I start? Okay, sweet. So what we want to do first is let the robot introduce itself. So we're going to use the print command. So over here, this command here is called print. So I'm going to use the print command, and what I'm going to do is print, hello, my name is robot. So this command is pretty simple. Let's go ahead and run. Whenever I click on the orange run button, it takes the commands, it processes them through the Python interpreter, and then the result is over here. So the print command means I want to print whatever message I give to the print command. So we go over here and we say print. Okay, so that's pretty simple. But what we could do is sort of explain how the command works. So I'm going to use Sketchpad to do that really, really quickly. I know everybody's sort of aware of how this command works, but just so that we can show it, let me put it on the screen here. So again, very, very simply, the way commands work is we've got the command over here, print, and I've got open brackets and close brackets. So this is the name of the command over here. This is the name. And this command is called a function because it does one thing and one thing only. In this case, it prints something, or it writes something to the console. And inside here are some words. And whatever the words we write, it gets printed to the console. So these words, the name for the words that we use sometimes is the name is called string. So you might see string, but basically you pass or you give a string or a series of words to the print command, and it prints it on the screen. And yeah, you could pretty much print anything. So now let's go over here back into our code, and we can see here is the print command, and in this case we're printing hello, my name is robot, and you can see it on the right side of your screen. So now what we're going to do next is another command called input, and something called a variable, which we've learned before. So a variable is a bucket to store some information. So in this case, our variable is going to be called name, and we're going to say that the name is equals to input, open bracket, what is your name? So let's take a look at this command and what we mean by that by going back into our Sketchpad. And I'm going to create a brand new Sketchpad here, and I'm going to say that we've used this command here that you've written down. So we've said name, so name equals to, let me write it not in cursive so it's easier to see, name equals to, and then we're saying input, which I'm going to put it in a different color, input, that's kind of hard to see, so let's make it a different color. Input, and then put open bracket and close bracket, and inside the input we can put some words. And again, what we're doing here is similar to what we did with the print command, except this time we do input. So what input does is asks the user a question. Asks a question and waits for an answer, right? Waits for an answer. And when it gets the answer, what do we do with it? Well, we just take the answer over here and we just put it in here. So the name becomes the answer to the question, what is your name? So that's why we have name as a variable. So in the beginning, let's go over here. In the beginning, we have a name variable, but it's empty. So imagine a box that's empty. Then you have your input that comes in and says, what is your name? And the user gives a name, let's say John. That name gets put into the name variable. So the next time someone wants it, they'll know that it's John. Yes, do you have any questions? Yeah, I think so. I think there is one other person, but they just left and they're coming back in a bit. But I think right now you're the only one. Okay, so yeah, so now let's see if we can use the name. So how do we use this name? So we use the name by just writing the name down. So if every time we want to use this name, let's say we want to print it, what we can do is say print, and then I open bracket, and then I say nice to meet you, and that's where I want to put the name. So how do I put the name in there? Well, what I can do is put a space after the U, then put a close my quotes, because if I open the quote, I have to close a quote, and then I put a comma, and then I put the variable that I want to print onto the screen, which is name. Okay, so now when I click run, it says, hello, my name is Robot. What is your name? Now you can type in your name to give it. So whatever your name is, or you can choose an example. Like for example, I can say Alice. When I click enter, it says, nice to meet you, Alice. So we don't need the extra space after the U because it already creates a space when we put the comma in, but we do want a space after the what is your name. That's because it'll help over here. You can see on the right side, I don't have a space between the name and the Alice. So let's run that again. So now it looks a little better. There's a parenthesis, there's a colon, sorry, and a space. And then I can type my name, let's say Unker, and it says, well, nice to meet you, Unker. So that's pretty awesome. So that's how this print works. So you might be wondering, well, why are there two different print methods? It's because there are two different ways we can use the print method. So the first thing you can use is we can just do print here and open and close and put some words in here. And the second thing is print with some words and a comma and the name of a variable. Okay, so over here you can think of in my variable box again, a name of a variable, which could be anything you want. So what it'll do is if the variable that we want is name, the program is going to find out what name is. If we have the name, let's say if it's John, it'll go back here and replace the variable with John. And that's why it'll print this combined with this. So it's hello combined with John coming from here. And that's why we get nice to meet you and then the name. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is create a variable called day and ask the user what day it is and then get the answer from them. So let's think about how we would do that. It's similar to how we did the name. So the first thing we have to do is create a name for the variable, And the second thing we have to do is use input to ask a question. So the name of our variable is going to be called day. So we call it here day equals to input, what day is it today, question mark. And then I like to put a space after the question mark so that there's a space in the print. In the final version, there's a space before you start typing, so it looks nicer. Okay, so day is going to be what is it today? And it's going to be called day. And now we can do two things. What I want to do is say thank you, name. Now I remember it is day. So here's what I'm going to do. First, I'm going to say print. And then I'm going to open and close the brackets. Inside the brackets, I'm going to just write the word thanks in quotation marks. Thanks. So, but then what I'm going to do is write a comma. And then I'm going to write name, not in quotation marks. And then I'm going to take a comma again. And then I'm going to write now I remember it is. And then I close the quotes again. I put a comma and I say day, and then I create one more time another comma and quote. So this is what it looks like in total. Let me take a picture of this and I can show you in greater detail. So let's take a picture of this and let's put it over here. Okay, so actually let me do it in a better way here. I'm going to go and create a new screen, and I'll take a picture of this just to highlight it a little bit. Okay, so this is my, and let's break this down a little bit, shall we? Okay, so I can fill this with black. Oh, it's not changing. Okay, this is good. So let's take a look at this line of code. So first it says thanks, then it says name, then it says now I remember it is, and then it says day, and then first you want to take a look at the different colors. So you'll notice that over here my thanks and now I remember and the period is in a yellow color, and the name and the day is in the white colors. So when the print, it basically combines the yellow with the white, and it changes the white with the actual value of this variable. So we might have two variables. Let's call them name, and that name is equals to John, and we might have another variable called day, which is equals to Monday. These are the answers that the user gave. So when it's time to print, the Python language goes like this. It prints all of the words and it replaces the variables with the content. So first it starts with thanks and it writes thanks like this. Then it writes name. So it looks at name, it says this is a variable. It says I want to get the name. So it goes to the name and finds it's John and writes John. Then it writes now I remember it is. So it writes that just like we wrote it. Now I remember it is. And finally we get to this day. And what we do is we replace the day with the value of the day, which is Monday. So this will be Monday. Once again, because we found the Monday, which was the value of the day, okay? And then finally we put a period at the end from here. So this is how Python makes a string. So let's go back here and we'll click run and we'll play this game. So it says, what is your name? What is the date? It is Thursday. And now it says thanks. Now I remember it is Thursday. Okay, pretty cool stuff. So we're going to continue now. So now it's time to ask some questions and get some answers. So that's called making a decision. So first, let's go ahead and ask a question. So the way that we're going to do it is we're going to use input again. So we're going to say, first, where do we want to hold the answer? When they give us a question, it's like they give us a piece of information or a present. Where do we want to hold that present? We need a box to hold it. So that box is going to be called today. Today, it says, what we want to do is we want for them to give us a number, 1 or 2. So what we want to do is ask them, are you in school today? If they say 1, that means yes. If they say 2, that means no. So what we're going to do is, because we want a number, and another name for number is integer, we're going to use the word int. Inside int, we're going to use input, which is how we ask a question. And then we say, so are you at school today? Excuse me. Put 1 equals yes, 2 equals no. Okay, so today, are you at school today? 1 is yes, 2 is no. Now it's time to make a decision. If they say 1, we're going to say, what are you studying? And if they say no, we're going to say something else. So how do we make decisions? Well, we make decisions using an if statement. So you've never used an if statement before. Let's quickly learn about what is an if statement. So an if statement is something like this. Imagine we have a triangle, a diamond. And over here, your question is going to be, it could be anything. For example, do you like Python? So in this question, there's a yes and a no. If you say yes, let's say my computer responds with a smiley face. But if they say no, let's say my computer responds with a sad face. So this is called statements, right? So this is an if statement because it makes a decision. First, it asks a question, which is, do you like Python? And then it does something if they say yes or if they say no. So how do we write that in code? So in code, the way we do it is we'll say if today equals 2 equals to 1. We always put 2 equals 2 next to each other. We don't put just 1. When we're comparing something, we have to put 2. So if today is equals to 1, then do something. Else, which means the other thing is true. We can also put elif, which means we want to test something else. So let me explain it in coding. It'll be much easier. So we have today. Now, what I want to do is really quickly print what the answer for today is going to be. So I'll just print today, just like that. So I'm going to run this code, and I'm going to say my name is Bob, and what day is it today? I'll say Thursday. And now it says, so are you at school today? And I'm going to say 1. Great. So it printed the 1 on the screen. So now that we know how to do that, we can now use a condition. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put a condition in here. So I'm going to put that if statement. So I'm going to say if today is equals to 1, then the lesson is going to be, actually, let's make it a little bit simpler. If today is equals to 1, we'll say print awesome. And else, or elif, today is equals to 2, we'll say okay for now. just to prove that we have these if statements. So the way they work is, well, let me show you on this piece of paper again. So once again, we have something that looks like this, and we have a beautiful diamond. And this diamond has our question. And the question is, you know, whatever, did you go to school today? And here is the yes, and here is the no. The yes line goes like this, and the no line goes like this. And here, when they say yes, it prints out a message, like maybe it says smiley face. If they say no, it prints out another message, maybe a sad face. And in the end, we reach back into where we were. So this, you could think of the, I'm going to use a different color because this is very hard to see. You could think of it as a decision. So here is a decision that we have to make. It either has a yes or a no, and we do different things for different decisions. So this is considered an if statement, and this is if yes, and if no, we use else. Okay, so let's get back here, and now we're going to see if this works. So I'm going to do a 1. So I'm going to do 1, and it says awesome, so that's good. But let's see if we had written 2, and it says okay. So I'm going to pause here, make sure we understand how we're making these decisions, and now let's change it up a little bit. So the answer to are you at school today, if they say yes, what I'm going to make them do is I'm going to say, give me if you were studying computing today. So I'm going to say lesson equals to, once again, int for a number, input for a question. Are you studying computing today? Again, 1 is yes, 2 is no. And now I'm going to do a decision on that. So I'm going to say if the lesson is equals to 1, then I'll print, great, I like computers, I can help you. Else, print, that's a shame, I like computing, it's all I know. Okay, and finally, if they said 2, meaning they were not in school, then I'm just going to say print, okay, well, I would prefer it if you were in school. Okay, so I'm going to take a picture of this and bring it into our sketchpad, and so let's see if we can understand it a little bit better. So I've got this on the left. What I'm going to do is try to break it down and make a chart out of it so you can see it as a flow chart. Okay, so we've got over here our first question. So I'm going to make this image a little bit smaller so you can see it. So here we go. I'm going to make this image smaller. And now hopefully you should be able to see this visually. So if you take a look at the screen, on the left here I've got my code, and on the right I'm going to create my decision tree. So the first decision is going to be a question that says, are you studying computing today? Let's go back one more, because let me put the whole if statement in there. Copy this, I'll bring it back here. Let's create a new image. Okay, so we're going to start from here, and let's work on this flow chart. So the first thing we're going to do is write a decision. So we have a question right away. And the question is, are you at school? So are you at school? This question is going to have a yes and a no line. The yes line has another question right away. So here we ask them, if they say yes, we ask them another question. Are you studying computing? So this way we can have decisions that lead to other decisions. So this is, are you studying computing? And again, this can also have a yes and a no. So if they say yes, we print something. And if they say no, we print something else. And then we get back to the regular flow of the program. Over here, if they had said no in the first place, then we would have said, if they would have said no right away, then we would have just wrote a little message here. So this is a simplified version of this. Now we're missing another question, another decision over here, but this is sort of how the decisions work. We can have a decision that leads into another decision, which leads into something else, right? So here it's yes and no. And then over here, this is just a single decision. So that's how this works. This one is over here, and this one is over here. Okay, and then this is over here, and this is over here, and this is over here. So that's how the code translates into a flowchart. Okay, let's take a little break. Let's take a 5-minute pause. We're gonna pause and then we'll come back and work more on our question. So let's take a recess, maybe for 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and finish up the rest of the lesson.